Hey guys, this is Dan, and today I am here to help all of you intermediate users that work with dates in pivot tables. So I'm pretty much the savior of that very specific niche of people. Alright guys, so let's get started. Let's talk about date errors in pivot tables, but first we're going to talk about how it's supposed to work. Now, when you actually learned about pivot tables, and if you haven't learned about pivot tables, you're not going to understand a peep out of this video. But for those of you that are here, they're here correctly, let's see how it's supposed to work in theory. You have a table with dates, products, and prices. So I'm going to grab this table, and I'm going to insert a new pivot table in this existing worksheet, say for example here, right guys? So if I wanted to check out, I don't know, sales by quarter, I just grab date down here to rows and price down here to values, and that's it. I have sales grouped up by year, by quarter, by month. All right, sales by quarter and by month, and that's awesome. All right, we have it all pre-grouped. Now, this is only for those of you superior people that have Excel 2016, the Excel 2016 master race. Those of you that are still living in prehistoric times with Excel 2010, or maybe even an unupdated version of 2013, I'm sorry, but you're probably going to get something more like this. All right, it's going to look more like this. So what you have to do is come here by hand, as if you were some kind of cave person. Right click on any date and press group, and ask it to group it by years, quarters, and months. Alright, so now we're all on the same page. And we have it grouped all together. Now, this is how date grouping is supposed to work in theory. This is probably what you learned in school, or whatever it is that you were supposed to learn in Excel. But in practice, not all dates are perfect. Alright, if you get a list of perfect dates good to go, you do not need this video. But most probably you've sometimes tried to group stuff, and Excel came up with some cryptic error message. So we're going to be checking out through the course of 7 different possible scenarios how we can fix our date errors. All right, so let's start out with date formatting. No date formatting. All right, so I'm come here, I insert my pivot table, and it's supposed to be right here in this existing worksheet. I grab date and drag it down here to rows. Well, that is a major problem, because since we have no date formatting here, we just can't group this stuff. All right, it's going to try and group it in increments of 100. That's not good enough for me. All right, so what we want to do is convert this to date. Now, luckily, these are serial numbers that tell me how many days have transpired from the beginning of the 20th century, the 1st of January of 1900, all the way up until, well, whatever date that was supposed to be. How do I know that? Well, I've been using Excel a long time, for long hours, every day, every month, every year. And that means I can recognize date serial numbers immediately. Notice how I magically transformed them right now to dates, all right? So we have these serial numbers, which are all somewhere in the neighborhood of 40-something thousand. And when I select all of them and come over here to my formatting menu and select date, I'll get dates out of them. All right, because they're actually dates. Now remember, Excel doesn't understand dates like human beings do, like normal human beings do. It understands dates as the number of days that have transpired since the 1st of January of 1900. All right, so I have my days right here. I have my 1st of January of 1900. I'm going to press Ctrl-Shift-3, convert it to date, or select any date format, and I've converted it to date. All right. Now, once I'm converted to date, I can go back here to my pivot table, and I can refresh the pivot table, and I still get nothing. All right, I need to get rid of the date. Actually, I need to get rid of the date, and then bring it back down, and then now I have my actual date. All right, I have my actual date grouped by month, by quarter, and by year. All right, notice how we didn't actually do anything. We didn't change the data at all. We just grabbed the dates, and that's it. Alright guys, so again, that was pretty simple. Now let's check out the next scenario when it's converted to text. I'm sorry, I skipped over one error. Alright, now let's check out this one error item. when I have one error in my dates. Notice how here it's pretty obvious, and I'm telling it that date that this American coffee was sold was on the 32nd of January. Now that is an unmistakable error. I'm going to go ahead and plow through it, insert a new pivot table in the existing worksheet, and grab the dates down here to rows. Now it looks pretty alright. It looks pretty alright. So I'm going to go ahead and think, yeah, I can group this stuff. Right click, group, and oh, here we go. Cannot group that selection, and that's it. That's everything that you're getting out of Excel. Right now, well, we know it's obvious. Somebody tried to type in the 32nd of January as the sale date for this American coffee. You have 30,000 pieces of data here, but with just one that's wrong, Excel is going to absolutely refuse to group the dates for you. All right, and that is pretty annoying. Right here, it's obvious. We can check it out right here. But imagine if it was, I don't know, line 16,000 that's wrong. Well, then you're screwed. You have to go check it out. There's several ways to go find that. All right, there's several ways to go find that. First and foremost is the fact that correct dates in the table, Excel automatically aligns them to the right. Okay, they're automatically aligned to the right, whereas incorrect dates, for whatever reason, they are aligned to the left. So right is correct, left is wrong. Nothing political here. It's just the way it is. Right is correct, left is wrong. Left is just text. All right. Now keep that in mind. We're going to be running across that error throughout the rest of the file. So what we can do here is just go check out, like from an initial cursor glance, if anything is aligned to the left. If they're aligned to the left, we have to re-educate that date and remove the wrong thing. So in order to correct the date, let's say for example, I think that what they meant to say was the 31st of January. Boom, it's now realigned to the right. We've corrected the wrong thing, and we can now use it within our pivot table. Again, if I go over here to my pivot table and press refresh, I might still get a problem. All right. Why? Because Excel still hasn't caught on to the fact that now it's all dates. Excel is still thinking that this is a mixed column of dates and text. So I have to remove the date field, drag it down here again, and it's still going to keep on with that. Well, if that's the case, bye-bye pivot table, and I insert a new one. All right, I insert a new one. And that's it. Now I'm going to get my dates correctly. Notice how they're already pre-grouped, and we are good to go. All right, we're good to go. So guys, let's go over here to this one that says converted to text. All right, I'm going to insert my pivot table. I'm going to insert a pivot table from this from this pivot table right here, and notice how all the dates look fine, just with one error. You'll notice that they are left-leaning. And if they're left-leaning, that means they're wrong. Excel is probably reading them as text. Notice how when I drag date down here to rows, it doesn't automatically group it. And if I try to group it by hand, again, you tell me we cannot group that selection. Why? All of those dates are stored as text. All right, all of those dates are stored as text. Proof that we can do nothing to correct it is that when I have an actual date, when I have real date, and I try to change the formatting, notice how we get different options for number, for currency, for short date, long date, time, percentage. I mean, they're all different, all right? But when a date is not being read correctly, and I come over here to my format menu, they're all the same. Excel is thinking that this is text, and for the same reason that it is text, it doesn't change if we change it to number or currency or fraction or scientific or whatever. All right, guys, so we're in trouble here. What could we do about it? Well, we could whip out a very trusty tool that no one knows it's good for this. I mean, actually, not even the developers thought it would be good for this. And it is my text to columns tool. All right, you'll find it right here in the data tab, and you go over here to text to columns. So go ahead, select your entire column A, and come over here to text to columns. All right, guys, data tab, text to columns. Now press right here, text to columns, and just as soon as you get the text to columns wizard, you're going to say we're done. Go over to finish. That's it. All right. As soon as it shows up, you press finish, And notice how all the dates that were aligned to the left, now they've been educated more properly, and they're now leaning to the right. Okay, they're now leaning to the right, and that means that these dates are now dates. If I come over here to Home and check out my format menu, notice how all of my options are now different again. That means Excel is now reading them as dates, and I can now insert a pivot table within this worksheet that will actually allow me to group them. Alright, again, notice how we have a happy ending here. They are all groupable because they are now all leaning to the right. Alright guys, let's go over here to the serial number. Let's go over here to where it says serial number. Now, Americans usually don't have this problem because they're Americans. The rest of the world has to comply with their ridiculous date standard, except the Japanese. Now, the Japanese, they do things their own way, and they do things this particular way. Year, month, day. Alright? Now remember, the rest of the world does day, month, year, and Americans, for some inexplicable reason, they do month, day, year. But the Japanese, they do year, day, month. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, right here we have the date. The date is being, I don't know, it's been giving us a serial number. And this particular serial number, it's just that. A number converted to text that is never going to work when it comes to grouping. Alright? Now, I'm going to show you how the grouping doesn't work in pivot tables, but it's unnecessary. It's like showing you the sky is blue. You already know that. So we drag the date down here, we drag the price down here, and there is absolutely no way we can group that. Alright? Cannot group that selection. No kidding. Alright, so how can we go about fixing this and turn it into an actual date? This is a number stored as text, so that's problem number one, but that's not, that's not the only problem. It's that it's given in a Japanese serial format. Alright, it's given in a Japanese serial format. It's given as a complete string of numbers. The year, and then we have the date stuck to it, the month stuck to it, and then the day. Alright, so what I'm going to do is go over here again to my very trusty text to columns tool. Alright, only that I need to go through a few extra steps. First one up is I'm going to grab my wizard. I'm going to tell it, instead of actually finishing with it on the first step, I'm going to go over to the next step. And I'm going to ignore everything over here. I'm going to say, yeah, fine. Let's go over to the next step. And this is where what we want is. Alright, this is where what we want is. I'm going to tell it, this is actually a date. And the format that's being used is year, month, day. Alright, notice how we have all these abbreviations here, and it's year, month, day. So I'm going to select this one, and then I'm going to click finish. And check out the magic happen. Voila! We turned those serial numbers, which were pretty ugly, into proper dates. And they are correct. We now have the dates in American format, which is month, day, year. Alright, month, day, year. And this means that I can now insert a pivot table in the existing worksheet. Drag the date down here, and price down here. Notice how we get a couple of mistakes, and this couple of mistakes, they're going to make my life very, very, very difficult. Alright, text to columns is not infallible. Notice how we got this to 2032 and 2033. They are not cool. Alright, why? Because it's day 32 and day 33, so we have to hunt them down, and the best way to do it would be using filters. Alright, these two, they were going to screw up my game. Let's convert this to 2030 and 2030. Alright, that doesn't mean they're still good to go. I would probably have to fix this by hand. Alright, so what I would do is 03, 30, 2032, and 03, 30, 2033. Alright guys, there we go. Fix it by hand. Select everything. Let's check out if refresh works. I'm sure it's not going to. So if I wanted to group that, oh, it's actually going to let me group that by months, quarters, and years. No, it's not going to let me again. Remove the date, drag the date down here again, and now it's going to let me group it. starting at, ending at, I don't know. We got a bunch of dates going all the way to 2030, so it's going to be, say, for example, 31st of the 12th, I'm sorry, 12, 31st, 2035. I don't know. There we go. We have them all grouped, just that we had a bunch of years with in the future with sales. Alright guys, so now let's go over here to broken date. This is probably the easiest one to get solved. Alright, this is probably the easiest one to get solved. We have a broken date in the sense that we have a column for days, a column for months, and a column for years. So we have to get them all together into one single date. And that's going to be pretty easy. I'm just going to add a date column over here. And the good people at Microsoft, imaginatively, they named the formula that's going to save us date. Right? So the date formula, it's going to ask from us a year, a month, and a day, and it's going to return an actual proper date. So 2014, that's the year. Month is number 2, and day is this particular one. Close parenthesis, and there we go. There we go. We have dates out of this particular elements. Again, I come over here, I insert my pivot table in this existing worksheet, and if I drag date down here and price down here, once more, I have sales by date. Alright guys, I have sales by date. Alright, so with that, we are done with the easy parts. The next two ones, they require for you to know, they require you to know VLOOKUP. Alright, if you don't know VLOOKUP, you are going to be left scratching your head at what it is that we're doing. But again, it may be that you are an Excel prodigy and you can learn VLOOKUP just in 2 minutes while I explain this. Alright guys, so we want to get a date here, but notice how we just have the numbers. We just have the month names. We just have the month names and that's it. Alright, we just have the month names and that's it. Now this is going to be pretty problematic, because when I insert my pivot table, here, I'm going to get the month names and the prices, but if I wanted to group them by quarters, say for example, or by years, I know they're all supposed to be 2014, I can't. Alright, I can't. I literally just have the month names, and this isn't that they're grouped. They are neither grouped or ungrouped, they're just month names. Excel thinks that these are text. Alright, so how would I go about fixing that? Well, I'm going to take a leap of logic out of here and assume that anything that was sold in February, they are okay. The powers that be are okay with me assuming they were sold on the 1st of February. Alright, and this is the key to make this work. You're going to check out, you're going to figure out which month they were sold on, and you're going to make up a date for that month. Alright, which usually is either the 1st or the last of the month. Nobody ever uses, say, for example, the 22nd of the month. So I'm going to press date, let's call it proper date, right here, and we are going to fix that. Now, notice how notice how we have this little table right here where we have the month names and the date we want to convert them to. So January is the 1st of January of 2014, February is the 2nd of February of, the 1st of February of 2014, and so on, and so on, and so on. So guys, what we're going to be doing is, we're going to be doing, say for example, equals date, equals VLOOKUP, and we're going to be looking the month name right here in our table, and we're going to be asking VLOOKUP to return us date serial number. So the lookup value here is going to be February. The table array is going to be this one. Call index num, we want second column. Range lookup, no, false, 0. Alright, one exact lookup. Alright guys, and notice how we get the proper dates back. Now, these aren't dates, these are serial numbers. We have to convert them to dates. Alright, remember, you can do that from this menu here, or pressing Ctrl-Shift-3 on your keyboard. Alright guys, so now that we've converted this to dates, I can now go ahead and insert a pivot table within my existing worksheet, and I'll grab date down here and price down here, and I'm sorry, it's not date that I want, it's proper date. And now notice how it's all grouped together. It's all supposed to be 1st of January, but I could theoretically group these by quarters and by years. And now I have sales by quarter, and I can also have sales by year. Alright guys, so again, I just converted text using this little table into a date. Now the last one right here is for special periods. Alright, this last one is for special periods. Now given that I'm not a very creative person, the only special periods I could figure out that existed were zodiac signs. Alright, so we're going to figure out when in the zodiac calendar this particular dates were sold. Now I really hope that business you're working for, they don't use zodiac signs as special periods unless you're into tarot reading or that kind of business. But special periods could be, I don't know, holiday periods, back to school periods, summer sale periods, spring break periods, stuff like that. Okay, stuff like that. Now the key here is to know when your period starts and when it ends. I chose the zodiac calendar because whenever one zodiac sign ends, another one starts. Alright? So the first thing that you have to do is line up a table full of your special periods and their start date and technically their end date. Their end date is pretty much going to be whenever the next one starts. Alright? Whenever the next one starts. If your special periods are not contiguous, then you need a calendar that includes like a normal vanilla period. So you would call it like, say for example, holiday period and then back to normalcy, and then Valentine's period and then back to normalcy, and then the spring break period and back to normalcy, and so on and so on and so on. And once you have your special table up here up and running, what you're going to do is say, for example, call it sign and do a simple VLOOKUP. Alright, now this VLOOKUP is going to look for the date within our table right here, and then call index number is going to be number 2, and the key for this to work is that we want an approximate match. Alright, we want an approximate match. We're going to press 1 on that. I'm going to close parenthesis, and there we go. Aquarius, Taurus, Capricorn, Aries, Gemini, whatever. So now we know that the powers that be, the astral powers that be, gave us these 2 sales during the period of Aquarius. I'm not exactly sure why you would use this in business. If your boss is actually making you do this, try and find another job. Alright, that business is not going to be in business for long. But this could be quite applicable to, again, whatever special period you dig up in the business. Say for example at Pioneer Seeds, they used a harvest period, collecting period, and then just normal period. Alright, whatever period you want, you can group it up here using VLOOKUP and your special reference table in your own table. And from here onto a pivot table, say for example in the existing worksheet, which is going to be right here, I drag a sign right here and price, and now I can check out how much I sold through each sign of the zodiac. So Leo is when my sales are highest, probably due to the, I don't know, astral implications of the alienation of the planets. I don't know anything about that. But the point is, that's how you would go about grouping dates into special periods that are not from the normal Gregorian calendar. Alright guys, so after this you should have no more problems grouping dates in pivot tables. We've checked out every single possible error there was. I hope you had fun with the video, and if you actually liked it, make sure to subscribe and smash that like button, and leave a comment giving us any comment that you want is good for me.